Well, hi, I'm Doug Campbell, President of the Automotive Safety Council here at our annual meeting, and I'm with Vince Park. He's with Qualcomm, which is one of our member companies. And Vince, it's great to have you here.
Oh, it's glad to be here.
You guys are in a unique product field, at least in our group, because you're into the V2X, as they call it, or V2V, or V to whatever. And why don't you tell us all about what does all those acronyms mean, and what's that do for somebody with a car?
So that's great. Yeah. So V2X stands for vehicle to everything. And what that really means, it's about allowing the car to communicate with other cars as well as with traffic signals and with other road users around it, pedestrians, bicycles, etc. And so it's this vehicle being able to communicate with everything around it to get a better sense of its environment so that you can start to anticipate problem situations, risk, and potential collisions. So basically each vehicle is sending its position, its direction, its speed every 100 milliseconds, so 10 times a second. And this can then be used to anticipate potential crashes and give warnings to drivers.
I mean, it sounds like a panacea of wonderfulness, but yet, what's it been? 20 years, 30 years in the making. We started out with short-range radar, SDRC, I guess, and that went by the wayside. And now, I guess 5G is how we're going to be going on this. And but then didn't they cut the bandwidth in half or something like that? The federal government, which is not the best thing to have done.
Yeah, it has taken a long time for this technology to kind of emerge, if you will. Like there was, like you said, early technology and even pilots and things like that. Deployment has been difficult. And I think part of the problem there is that to get many of those safety benefits, you kind of need a lot of vehicles and others to be equipped. And so it's almost like this startup challenge, right? It's like once everybody has it, it's great. But who wants to be first? And I think that's been part of the challenge. As you mentioned, during that kind of delay period, there was reallocation of some spectrum for unlicensed use. So things like Wi-Fi took a piece of the spectrum. But we were able to show in our testing and simulations that the remaining 30 megahertz of spectrum is still sufficient to do the basic safety scenarios that we all are looking for. So now we're kind of at this stage where I think everyone, the industry, is being more thoughtful about how do we initiate deployment, get deployments going. And so federal government, for example, in the US is pushing a little bit more on the infrastructure side deployment. So if you start to get intersections enabled and deployed early, this provides an incentive then for vehicles to follow. And I think technology continues to advance during this time. So now we're even talking about using what I would call kind of like smart digital roadside, right? So where you have something like cameras and other sensors at intersections that can detect unequipped vehicles as well as pedestrians and bicycles and such, and then be able to send information about those entities over V2X. So this gives even greater incentive now for a vehicle to be willing to step up, right? That not only could they be getting traffic signal information very early, but they could even be getting information about other road users at dangerous intersections that they can then use for safety immediately. So essentially, even if you're the first OEM, there's an advantage, or once we have that kind of system.
It always seems like it's always been like the chicken and egg thing. It's like, well, why would I put something in the car to talk to infrastructure if the infrastructure isn't there?
Yep.
And that's like, well, why would I put the infrastructure in if there's no cars to talk to me? I mean, it needs to be a coordinated effort that really the government needs to direct.
Governments can help, and I think in some regions of the world we do see that happening. In China, for example, the government has been very assertive at pushing some V2X use cases, if you will, into the NCAP program, the China NCAP program. Mm-hmm. We also see Europe doing some of that, like starting to add V2X into Euro NCAP. And I think this, again, creates more incentive, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's what's needed, in a sense, a little bit of that motivation to get the system going. And I think once it starts happening, then it snowballs from there. Yeah,
because with this technology, you don't have to have a line of sight any longer from the vehicle. You know somebody's around a blind corner or around a blind building or something, and that maybe they're going to run a red light, or maybe they're
Right.
not stopping soon enough, or something like that, and you can't see them, but your car would know, I better be careful. I mean, that sounds like it would be really helpful.
Exactly. And in that sense, we think of it as basically being an enhancement or an augment to other sensors on the vehicle. So, vehicles today are increasingly equipped with technology, with cameras, with radars and things. But these types of sensors tend to be line of sight. So those sensors see what the driver sees in some sense, right? And then I think with communications, like you said, V2X, you tend to have this ability to kind of see beyond just the direct line of sight. So you can imagine now even you're following a truck, and in front of you, in your lane, there's a stalled vehicle ahead. You could know about this even though you can't see it through the truck, and your sensors can't see it because of the occlusion of the truck. But V2X would be able to give you that awareness so that you could start to adapt your speed well in advance. And this is, for example, even imagine now that at the last minute, the truck decides to change lanes, to avoid
Surprise.
the stalled car. Right. If this happens with too short notice, it becomes very difficult for the second vehicle maybe to then adapt and stop in time. And so there you could even imagine that while the initial use cases for V2X are driver warning, giving warnings to driver, you can also imagine that over time this becomes about intervention in the vehicle too. So even doing something like having the car adapt the speed, even if the driver does not, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. And also then, I think it was maybe Atlanta that was trying to time having traffic lights talk to their emergency vehicles, like ambulances or fire trucks or whatever, so that when they're moving, all the lights turn green for them. They give them a clear path to what they need to do, which is a lot more safe than having to try run red lights with the sirens on and everything else. And maybe because there's a lot of collisions between emergency vehicles and regular vehicles. And so, I mean, it sounds again like what a great idea.
Yeah, and I think that you're bringing up kind of another a really good point that I think once you have this radio, this direct communication radio capability in the vehicles, it can be used for lots of different things. And some of them are very safety related. Other are maybe a little bit more road efficiency related. So certainly the emergency vehicle priority, if you want, through an intersection, you could say is safety. But you could also do things like bus, priority, right? Preemption maybe for emergency vehicles, priority for transit.
Have the buses run on schedule and on time? That'd be great.
Exactly. So, in a sense, what that's leading to is that the communication channel can be used for coordination, right? Where you have a bit more of a dialogue or conversation going on between those emergency vehicles or those transit vehicles with the intersection, and then adapting one to suit the other as needed, right? And there's many such use cases, right?
I mean, this sounds like it just has a panacea of capabilities that once installed, we have endless possibilities of improving numerous things in life. And of course, people always worry about privacy.
Yes.
Any ideas about how that's going to be taken care of?
Yeah. So the messages that are sent, and just to be, I guess maybe I should say up front, as you said, because this technology has a bit of a long history, we've been working on standards for this for quite some time. So the standards at this point are all in place and relatively mature. There's testing and certification programs already defined being used to certify devices, things like that. So we're pretty far along in being ready, for deployment. And initial deployments are in fact starting. But in terms of privacy, the approach is basically where the message is sent without identifying the sender. So essentially they're what we call a pseudonym. So you know that there's a vehicle there, but you don't know whose vehicle it is. And that pseudonym even is changed quite frequently, right? So it's not a constant value even, to kind of really prevent tracking and things like that. So there's been a lot of thought and effort and design put into privacy and anonymity and anti-tracking kind of technology and things like that.
Well, that's great to hear. And at any rate, I'm just excited that this is finally maybe on the horizon of happening, and it's just going to be a game changer, I think, for safety and other aspects of life.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm very, we're excited about it, and we're excited to see deployments happening in different parts of the world. Some regions seem to be leading a little bit more than U.S. I mean, in Europe, there's already millions of vehicles on the road with this technology. In China, there's vehicles on the road and intersections deployed. In the U.S., we're mainly on the infrastructure deployments. So, the state DOTs starting to do deployments at their intersections, and some quite a few. So it's not insignificant. It's significant, but it's a big country. There's a lot of intersections.
Yeah, there are.
And,
It's just like in our general automotive safety, like we've been talking at our meeting all this week, Europe and other parts of the world have just gone past us on protecting people. The fatality rates of other countries have gone down so much while we haven't, and a lot of it just comes to the foot of the government, quite frankly, and we just need them, as I always tell people, the will to act and get these things done. So I'm hoping they'll have the will to act on this. And
we do see some encouraging signs from the government. A year or two ago, they released a kind of a national deployment plan. It was kind of withdrawn for a period once a new administration came in place, but our understanding is they're in the process of renewing it. So they're updating it and going to release a new national deployment strategy. So that's encouraging.
Well,
there's at least some motivation, I think, even on the government side here.
All right.
Yep.
Well, Vince, thanks so much. It's been enlightening, and I hope that the public will start seeing this soon, and they'll go, I know what that is.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. It was good talking to you.
Very good.